So hi everybody, I'm here today with Lynda Huey, who is the most amazing aquatic rehabilitator and presenter. She has written, well, I counted over 76 articles, but I've been informed that it's around 200 and something. So grab yourselves a cup of tea, cup of coffee, glass of wine, whatever the time of day is for you, and sit back and enjoy this time whilst Lynda and I chat away about her career and what's brought her into the aquatic industry. So hi, Lynda.
Hi there, another Lynda with a Y.
I know it's very unusual actually to have another Lynda with a Y. So I don't. Is it the same in America? Is there not many?
But there's more and more as I go. I changed it in 6th grade.
Oh, did
there
you?
were too many Lyndas, and I was not going to be just another Lynda Li. So I changed it in 6th grade before I got my driver's license. So then I used my driver's license with a Y to get my passport with a Y. So I can never use my birth certificate.
Oh,
you might want to erase all of this and.
Oh, excellent.
It's just a side story. You can take all that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've been in the aquatic industry for many, many years, and I understand that you came to it through being a professional athlete yourself and actually getting injured. So
we weren't professional back in those days. Track and field was not professional back in the 60s when I was competing, and in the 70s. In the 80s is when, late 80s, early 90s is when the sport of track and field became professional, when athletes could accept money. Until then, they were running for shoes. That was about it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, the money that these people get nowadays is unbelievable, and yet sort of the pioneers were back when in the days when you were competing, and you know, all that time ago. But okay, so tell me a little bit about how you sort of like how you transferred from being the athlete into being the therapist.
Well, it was a pretty linear story of being an injured athlete and saying, I have a track meet coming up. How am I going to stay in shape? So I would start swimming. I would swim laps. I'd ride a bike. Those are the two things that I would do to cross train to stay in shape. And then when I would go back to the track, I would feel awkward. The running form wasn't there. My arms weren't in the right place. My feet weren't landing in the right place. I still had strength and I had fitness, but I wasn't in shape. But eventually I went in a pool. I broke my foot in 1976. And I got in a pool to teach myself how to walk without a limb. So once I realized that I could be better fit for running, if I trained running in the water, then I started doing that.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference in the world to do my speed work, my sprinting in the water. So when my roommate, who was America's best hurdler, Patty Van Wovelaar, got injured with a sprained ankle, I said, come on, let's go to the pool. I know what to do. So I helped her. And because she was an Olympic level person, she was one of the best in the world. And she had friends everywhere. And she told all of her friends about it. And they all saw that she did well after being hurt. So they all started calling me wherever they were in the country, in the US. This wasn't international yet. They would call me from New York or from Houston or wherever they were injured and say, Lynda, what do I do? And so I would kind of direct them. This is before FaceTime. We couldn't just say, I'll show you. Let me see what you're doing and I'll show you. And so one thing led to another. So I was working with Olympic track and field athletes. And then I started working with professional athletes who started hearing about it. Because when you work with people like Florence Griffith Joyner, Carl Lewis, and Wilt Chamberlain is one of your best friends, and you work with him, and those kind of stories get out, then all of their friends want what they had. I had Sinbad, a comedian. I don't know if you know him over there, but he's a well-known comedian here in the US. He said he was looking for me for years. I want that woman that helped Wilt Chamberlain, he was saying to people. He finally found me, but it was a story in LA Magazine about me. But it led to other people finding me and me working with high-level fitness people and athletes.
Yeah.
I always say that things start with the athletes, it moves down to the recreational athletes, it goes into fitness, and medicine is last.
Yes.
I
quite agree with that. I quite agree with that. Yeah. I would say that because to be fair, the pandemic has changed, but I started a PhD and I said, I need to do it with athletes, because if it's good enough for the athletes, then the recreational athletes and the general population want it. But if you start off with the general population, you get stuck as being an expert in backs or knees or hips or something like that. You need the athletes for it to become accepted.
So you saw that.
Yes.
I always tell people now, the athletes is where you build your reputation, because you oftentimes aren't getting paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you build your reputation, and then the other people are the ones who pay you.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you sort of went and you've been working with these elite athletes from all walks of life. What sort of things were you doing with them? So was it still the water running, or did you sort of like, that was when you started to adapt and sort of become creative?
I had started a water power workout program in '83.
Wow.
And it was called Aqua Aerobics back then. I was working for Dr. A.R.E.A. at the International Sports Science Institute. And the pre-Olympics came to Los Angeles the year before the games. So we had athletes from all around the world training here. And Dr. Perry said to me, you were a track athlete, you were a track coach, because I did coach at major universities around the country before I settled in LA. And he said, figure out what to do with that swimming pool over there. So I took the injured athletes into the water, and I already had the experience I had with my roommate and the other track athletes. So I already had a foundation, but I needed more to go with it. And so I created a plyometric program, the jumping portion. There's lunges and there's jacks, all these things that people do in water exercise classes. I was doing them as plyometrics for athletes back in the 80s. So we would do that as for our warm up, all the plyometrics, and then we would do the interval training, which you need for track and field athletes. So whatever their sport, whatever their distance was, I would tell, okay, all the sprinters over here, the middle distance runners here, the distance runners over there, and they would all be doing different things. I'd start the distance runners running, and they keep going the whole time. The middle distance runners would do longer intervals. The sprinters would do up to 10-second sprints. I mean, those are really fast, all out sprints. They would do 30-second sprints. So I was running them, taking them through their mind and doing a 200 meters. Or I would have, the only reason I do it those distances, it's easy to see on the clock.
Yeah.
The clock goes around, the 15 seconds is the first turn. The next 15 seconds, you're at the halfway mark. The next 15 seconds, you're at the 300 meters. The minute you've done a 400. So even though we know that the men and the women were both running sub 60, they liked that extra distance and made them work hard.
Yeah.
So that's how I started, was working with them. And as I started working with more regular people, so to speak, I just sort of created what I was doing as I went, because if someone told me that they were having trouble, a woman that was about 75 said she couldn't, and had a total knee replacement, she couldn't stand up on her surfboard. She could paddle okay, but then she couldn't stand up on her surfboard. So I put a step in the pool, I had her pretend to paddle, and I had her jump sideways onto the board the way she would on the board, so that she could duplicate the activity in the pool that she wanted to do in the ocean or on land in most other cases. But I just learned to figure out how can I get them to train that neuromuscular pattern and get stronger in that movement so that they can do it on land.
Excellent. So was that sort of part of what then took you in? Because I know you did, is it a master's in kinesiology, or was it the degree in kinesiology? So which came first?
Well, I went to San Jose State. I got my undergraduate and I got my master's degree. And then I coached in Washington, D.C., in San Luis Obispo, in Ohio. I was the athletic director at Oberlin College in Ohio. I was the volleyball coach in Carlsbad, California, which is about 2.5 hours south of Los Angeles. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and then I started working just sort of unofficially with the various athletes. And then Bobby Kersey, the track coach at UCLA, who coached Jackie Joyner-Kersey and Gail Devers and Valerie Briscoe and Florence Griffith-Joyner and Andre Phillips and many of the best track athletes. They used to call it Team Kersey as part of the U.S. team, because Team Kersey always came home with the gold medals.
Excellent.
He hired me as UCLA water rehab coach. So that was where I got my official entree to use the UCLA pool with athletes. I was just using it there because the coaches knew me and they just said, oh yeah, go over and use that part.
Yeah.
That was my official status then at UCLA.
Excellent. Excellent. So what's been sort of like, would you say, your biggest challenge in your career since you've been doing all the aquatic stuff? what's been the sort of the hardest part of it? I mean, some people say it's getting the pools, some people say it's the people. So what's
the second thing you said? The second thing that
I said, some people say it's some of the people, or, you know, they've got a challenging client or something like that. So what for you has been the most challenging part of your career in the
well, the fact when I moving forward, then I had a business called, I still have it, Huey's Athletic Network, and I do the home visits that I still do for VIP clients, patients, client/patients. If the doctor calls me and says, I need you to go see this patient, they just got out of surgery 4 weeks ago, they're ready to have you come to their home. I don't run it through my physical therapy business. I run it as a cash practice through my Huey's Athletic Network business, because I'm not a physical therapist. Yeah. And I, in partnership with a physical therapist, have complete PT, pool, and land physical therapy in West LA, about a 10-minute drive from my house in Santa Monica. And the most challenging thing that we do, well, let me just back up, because what happened was physical therapists started getting into the act in 93. I was seriously into it in 83. So 10 years later, the physical therapist said, this is our world. We're going to try to take it back. We don't want people that aren't licensed to have it. And
I know that.
Yeah, don't we all of us who were in it early and around the world. And then the physios in your country and most of the world, we call them physical PTs here, physical therapists here. They, you know what, but they know they don't own it because they don't even teach it in any of the colleges.
Yeah.
It's not taught in any of the colleges. So whenever I've just hired 4 new physical therapists in the past 2 months, we're growing so fast. The pandemic actually helped us. We are thriving and growing. And I have to train every single one of them because they didn't learn anything about it in school. So, which is actually kind of good because they're learning my methods. They aren't learning somebody else's methods.
Yeah.
But the hardest part for me in my whole career has been the insurance situation, is because physical therapists over the past 10 years have been making about 15% more than what they were making 10 years ago. But insurance companies have cut us back by as much as 50%. One of them cut us back by 50%. Blue Cross did. Medicare tried to cut us back another 3% this year, but Joe Biden stepped in and said, you're not doing it right now during the pandemic. That's on hold. So we're getting paid at a regular rate. But the fact that insurance keeps paying us less and the staff keep making more money, that's the most difficult part.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, because it's the same over here, to actually the insurance companies to appreciate what can be done, because I've always had the argument that to work in water, you've got to love being in water.
Yes.
And so there's a whole industry out there of people who would make brilliant rehabbers, absolutely fantastic, because they understand the water and they understand how the human body moves in water. Right. They just sort of need that extra education. But quite often, I mean, I get a lot of degree students that come and do placements with myself, and I say I'm more than happy to have degree students to come and have their placements. I'm more than happy to teach them. My only insistence is they've got to love being in water, because if they don't, then they're wasting mine and their own time. And this is it. You get a lot of people that go on and you know, the same with the physical therapists. They've got to sort of come to the pool, get undressed, get in the pool, take their patients in the pool, and then reverse the process and go back to clinic. And not all the people sort of like that. But, you know, yes, you've got some of I've got some good friends who are physical therapists who, you know, amazing hydrotherapists, amazing aquatic therapists, hydrotherapists, whichever way you want to call it. Yeah. But, you know, it's the minority, not the majority. And then the insurance companies will only work with people if they're physical therapists. So
that part is true, but even so, that's the problem, is because PTs make more and more money and the insurance companies are paying less. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's enough people out there that have money and have pools.
Yes.
Those of us who love the water, we can go to their home pools. And here in Southern California, there's about 8 months a year that everybody keeps their pool heated. And then there's 4 months a year that most people turn theirs off, but the wealthy keep theirs on year round.
Yeah.
But the thing that what you were just saying about having to love the water, prior to the pandemic, our therapists were in the pool one whole day, then on land the next day, then in the pool the next day, then on land the next day.
Absolutely.
So they spent the whole day in the water. That's why they had to love the water.
Yeah.
You can't spend 8 hours a day in the pool if you don't like water.
Yeah. No.
But now, during the pandemic, we had to make space. We had to take our PTs out of the water, and the patients are in the water, and now they are one-on-one. We used to double book in some occasions.
Yeah.
We aren't doing that anymore. Now it's one-on-one. We got rid of our physical therapy aides. We thought we have to crop this down and reinvent the business.
Yeah.
And it's actually working better this way with only the PTs deck side and the patient in the pool. Now, I don't like it as much. I feel like my hands are tied behind my back if I'm not in the water with the patient.
Yeah.
But for a clinic to work well and to be able people to move instead of having to go, our showers are turned off right now because we want people to come in their suit,
Yeah.
get in the water, change in the changing room, and go home to keep the place still low volume.
Yeah.
Well, when we turn our showers on eventually, that people will congregate there. There'll be 8, 10, 12 people in their locker room, which isn't something you want during a pandemic.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But the reinvention of the business has made us a much more financially successful business. And I hate the fact that I had to trade my strong belief that it's better to have a PT in the water with the patient for having a business that's going to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I'm in the water with a lot of my clients because a lot of what I do is hands-on as well.
Yeah.
But you know,
well, you do office stretch, you have to be in the water with them.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you're on poolside and sort of looking down, I sit there and think that, you know, it's the patients then are looking at your feet, or if they're looking up. And so, of course, you know, again, that compression in the cervical spine. So I'm sort of, you know, where I work actually is, I ought to explain that because obviously everyone doesn't know as well as you don't know, but where I work, it's a pool that's attached to a hospital, and
Yes.
the hospital specializes in spinal injuries. So, you know, so you really want to sort of like keep them in a good posture, not sort of looking up at the therapist, really.
You
So,
often have to be there hands-on for safety if you're going to do any prone work with them, laying them on their back and moving them around.
absolutely.
You know. We do have 2 afternoons a week at my clinic where we put the 2 therapists in the water. Each can see 3 patients, so we have 6 slots a week that people that need hands-on care can have the PT in the water with them. But otherwise, our people are going upstairs at the gym and downstairs the pool, and upstairs the gym and downstairs the pool.
Yeah.
They're only seeing 11 people a day now. They were seeing 15 on land and up to 20 in the pool. But believe it or not, we're making more money this way, just because the patients love that one-on-one with the PT instead of being double booked or instead of being with an aide. They are really happy. They bond with their therapist. And here's the other problem: when you alternate days like we were doing, you say, well, you wanted to see Lori, you're canceling today, you want to come in tomorrow. Lori isn't in the pool tomorrow. You have to see somebody else.
Yeah.
So people are having to see 3, 4, 5 different therapists to be seen, but now they can stick with the same therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I always think sort of is more advantageous to everybody, because then the therapist gets to know the patient as well. So excellent. Okay, so tell me a little bit about some of the articles that you've written as well. Sort of, they're freely accessible on your website, aren't they? The ones that are available.
They are. You just have to dig around on the website a little bit.
So what sort of things do you talk about in your articles? So if anybody was sort of interested in something, have you got a sort of like special selection on knees or on hips or on backs?
No, but that's a good idea. No, I don't have that because I have done too much writing about. Most of the time, people ask me about the general concept because I was one of the first people around doing this, and I was the poster child that they chose in the 80s, and every newspaper in America had a photo of me standing on the side of the pool teaching a class of something or about something, and it was all general information. It was, they all ask the same questions. Why do you like the water? And we talk about the buoyancy. But my books tell the knee program and the hip program, Heal Your Knees, which I wrote with Robert Clapper. He's an orthopedic surgeon at Cedars. Heal Your Hips.
I'll ask you about that next. So tell us
Okay.
about those.
Okay. Sorry to jump ahead.
That's okay.
Robert Clapper was the former chief of orthopedics at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, and one of the top hospitals in the country. And he believes in the water so much, he sends all of his patients to me before they have surgery and after surgery. And so he sends us anywhere between 2 and 15 patients a week. And we have other doctors that send us between 1 and 2 a week. Nobody else sends more than that, but he does.
Yeah.
But we have 30 to 40 new patients every week. And that's why I'm having to hire a new physical therapist almost every month right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what sort of things in the books do you sort of talk about? Do you give ideas of exercises, or do you talk about, tell me a little bit about sort of what
in the
people,
books?
about
Okay.
that's it. So people can know what they're looking for.
So the first half of the book is Dr. Clapper explaining in lay language all the problems that could go wrong. Here's what an ideal knee looks like. Here are the problems that can happen with it. Here's what we would possibly need to do if this happened to you. And pictures and drawings of everything so that the lay people can learn, oh, what is a torn meniscus? What does that mean? What is an ACL? Oh, I see why that's so important. Here's a drawing of all the ligaments. And then there's there's a whole transition to the pool chapter. There's a whole chapter on getting ready for the pool, the equipment that you might need. There's a full program before if you haven't had surgery, this is your program. Yeah. And then there's, but by the way, there's a 10 minutes in the pool and 10 minutes on land at the beginning of each book. Excellent. Which requires no equipment, just a bathing suit. We want people to get in the water and see what it feels like right away. And then they learn about the joint, learn about the hip, or learn about the knee. And then when they're going to see that, then we have a post-surgical chapter, and it's broken down by arthroscopy, by joint replacement, and in the case of the hip, by femoral acetabular impingement, FAI, which is a torn labrum, and how they have to clean up the joint to get rid of that impingement and reattach a torn labrum. And pictures explain it all. So what I do when I go see any patient for the first time at home, I take them a copy of the appropriate book. I want them to read about their problem. So I'm not the only one trying to teach them, but they're becoming an educated client or patient or student.
Excellent. Excellent. That sounds really good. Really good. Really informative, especially sort of for somebody who's quite new coming into the industry and wanting to deal with patients like that, as well as for the people who, as you say, the layman, the everyday person that might want to know how to deal with their own issues. So
all of those, yes.
Yeah. So I saw that you've sort of like written, are they the two main books and you've done various chapters, or was there other books that you've sort of like written as well or been part of?
If you went to Amazon and typed in my name, you'd see all my books, because some of them have been translated into German and into Spanish. I started with my autobiography when I was 28. New York Times published it. It was called A Running Start, An Athlete, a Woman. And it just told the story of a woman athlete who didn't make the Olympic team, and the challenges she's faced with because there's no opportunity, and how I sort of had to flirt my way onto the track with the guys, and get the same coaching that they got. Whereas my friends at UCLA and USC were not even allowed on the track at the same time the men were allowed on the track. So that book has come back into print. It's being sort of recirculated now. It was a librarian's bestseller. Every librarian in America had a copy of that book, but it was ahead of its time, and it didn't remain in print. So I brought it back into print 5 years ago.
I was going to say, it sounds actually very up to date now.
Now it is, yeah. People are finding it again now.
You said you're ahead of your time.
And when you're too far ahead of your time, you can't make any money.
Yeah.
But and then I wrote The Water Power Workout, was published in '86. Now it too was ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. And so that book didn't make any money either. But then in '93, I published the complete Water Power Workout book, a real thick one with Robert Forster, physical therapist. And that book is still the best-selling book in aquatics right now. And it's been published in 3 languages.
Excellent. Now that I didn't think about going on is Amazon and Googling you.
Yeah.
I went into Google and got your name and your website, but
and then not as many people have written as many books as I have, so you wouldn't think of it. But then after Heal Your Knees, which was 2004, we wrote the first Heal Your Hips book in '99. 2004 was Heal Your Knees, but by 2004 our hip book was already out of date, because some Swiss surgeons had learned about FAI, femoral acetabular impingement. I usually rattles off my tongue, but even I can stumble on it. So it's a tough word.
Yeah.
FAI. And once they had identified FAI, and that's why the labrum tears, and the torn labrum is what leads to the deterioration of the hip joint, and that's what leads to OA. Suddenly, it isn't black and white anymore. You have this whole area of gray in the middle, and so we had to write a whole new book. So the second edition of Heal Your Hips came out in 2015, and that's the book I'm proudest of. I think it's really fabulous.
Yeah.
And then since then, I have written a textbook that is available online for my aquatic rehab online course, which has 12 videos in it and 12 chapters in it. And people are studying it in 23 countries.
Excellent. So that's one that, you know, before we actually even started recording, we were talking about this and maybe bringing that to the UK and getting it sort of accredited and pointed over here, which will be fabulous. So, you know, watch this space, because Lynda and I will talk about this off camera.
Yeah.
And see.
And I will help any way I can.
Oh, lovely. That'll be absolutely fabulous. So what do you use equipment when you're doing your training, or is it basically just you know, the person and the swimming costume? So what sort of equipment do you use?
Everybody has a flotation belt.
Yeah.
Everybody has a flotation belt, especially if they have an injury. The only person who wouldn't have an injury, wouldn't have a flotation belt, would be a high impact athlete, like a track athlete with no injury.
Okay.
The minute there's an injury, a flotation belt goes on them to decrease the impact or to take them to deep water.
Lovely. Over here, we've got a lot of pools that are sort of single depth, which I'm not sure whether, you know, some of them, even if you put a belt on, you still would be sort of like pedicuring your toes, which is how I'm describing it.
I know exactly what you mean, but I've made modifications. When I toured South Africa, I always told them the pool is too deep to be shallow and too shallow to be deep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At my height, people were taller than it was a shallow water pool, but I had the water up to here on me, which isn't the right depth really. And then, but when you put a flotation belt on, I did the modifications for everybody in all three of my stops at Cape Town and Pretoria and Durban. And everybody learned the modified versions for the pools that they use, which is that you have to lean forward to do the running and get your feet out behind you. You got to lean back, hold the side of the pool, get your legs out in front of you for the walking and the flies.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still do the deep water interval training in a modified version.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant.
Now, in addition to that, so I manufactured the complete PT belt, which used to be the hydrotone belt.
Mm-hmm.
People knew it as the hydrotone belt. You might have had it over there.
Yeah.
But it was no longer being manufactured by the man who had it. He gave me the rights to manufacture it. So now it's a complete PT belt.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get it from Amazon. Free shipping in the US. I don't know what the situation is to the UK.
Yeah, well, we can look that up and sort that out as well. So
what on the back of the belt, I changed it a little bit because I like to tether somebody to the side of the pool exactly in the center of the belt. And there was a piece of vinyl right there. You couldn't tether right there. So I moved that out of the place so we could hook our tether right onto that spot.
Yeah.
So now the belt is super set up for tethering and doing deep water intervals.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything else other than the belt? I mean, that's actually quite nice, because that's, again, a general piece of equipment that is accessible to all, and a tether. Not always quite so easy to anchor, especially in the UK, to anchor to the side of the pool. There's not all the pools that have got somewhere, but
it doesn't have to be something that's built in. You can put a weight there and attach to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're in true deep water, your feet aren't touching the bottom of the pool. Well, even in the revised version, you're holding on the side of the pool the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Modified version. But if you are in deep water, I usually just drop my athletic bag on the side of the pool and tether onto the strap of it, because it only takes about 10 or 15 pounds to hold it down. And no matter, unless somebody's 220 and super strong, but someone of average size is not going to pull that into the
tether off. Yeah.
Just bring over a chair, a heavy chair, and put it around the leg of the chair.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent.
So then we have lots of other equipment that we use. Yes. after we get somebody through the basics without equipment, then wearing the belt is not equipment to us. That's part of their body. They're going to wear that.
Yeah. So do you think that's your favorite piece?
It's the
most adaptable.
It's the most important one. You have to have it in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then as we strengthen people for upper body, we have 4 different levels of resistance pieces that we're pulling with. forward and back, up and down, all kinds of exercises for upper body for strengthening the shoulders, the core. We brace them on the side of the pool while they use these either small, medium, or large Aqualogics pieces.
Yeah.
And then there's the hydrotone bells that we still have. They don't make them anymore, but they last forever. And so we still have 4 sets of them, and we're using those huge yellow ones. And then for the lower body, we have the Aqualogics 4 fins. Like sometimes they call them the blades, sometimes they call them the fins. They keep changing their minds. So my staff calls them the fins, so that's what I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
So you have the small, you have the medium, and you have the large of those. And what I started doing when that didn't seem to be enough was put 2 on somebody's leg.
Yeah.
And by the time you get up to 2 of the biggest ones, you put 1 facing forward and 1 facing back. And now you've got resistance all around the leg. You can do all kinds of exercises, get maximum resistance.
Yeah. Perfect.
At
Perfect.
the end of all that, if you think that, and then if you're doing the running and jumping stuff, they can wear the belt while they're doing the running and jumping as a transition to be able to do it. If they weren't able to do it without the belt, that can make it possible for them to get started earlier. If you think you've worked somebody kind of hard and you want to kind of give their knee, hip, or back a rest, we put ankle weights. Sprint Aquatics makes the water weights that we use. 1 pound, 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, even 15 pounds on each leg sometimes. And then we have to put two flotation belts. 1 flotation belt is buckling at the front, 1 flotation belt is buckling at the back. We usually use the wave belt for the second one because you don't want 2 of those big ones and you feel like, yeah, great. But so we have 2 belts there, and then 2 noodles. We take them down the deep end, let them hang there for 10 or 15 minutes. That's our recovery mode.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got, I've made some belts for not belts, sorry, some weights that would go around the ankle, or you can put them around the thigh. I've got extension straps for them because I was buying the weights from the States, but of course it was going to cost me about £1,000 to ship a load over to the UK.
Yeah. I'm glad you made them. I want to know about them.
Yeah, I've had them made over here in the UK as well. So yeah, so especially for sort of yourself, if you're sort of dealing with Europe, then it might be sort of something where they might be
you.
Well, yeah. So again, we'll work on that. And
now that you're not part of the EU, I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that. Oh, anyway, that's
a whole new issue.
That's a whole nother story, and something that we'll need to sort out at some point in time. I'm sure eventually the Europe and the UK will sort out trade deals and things.
Yeah,
they've got to.
Really. It has to happen.
They have to. So what do you think is the strangest thing that's happened to you in your career? Have you had anything that's really been quite bizarre, or something that came to you out of the blue that you weren't expecting?
I think the whole beginning, the whole first 5 or 6 years, the whole thing was coming to me out of the blue. It was like, wow, because I felt like I had worked so hard on my life and I couldn't quite make anything happen. And all of a sudden, the New York Times was calling me, and the LA Magazine and the LA Times and all these different magazines and newspapers are calling me. They all want my story, and they all want my picture, and they all want, they made me famous for 15 minutes, you know. It was, it felt like it was coming out of the blue, but it was like people say it's an overnight success that you took years to get there too.
Yeah. That's it. This is it, isn't it? Like an overnight success never quite happens, but it just sort of seems to.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So where do you think you're going next? What's the next part of your journey?
I've always wanted, well, I've had 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 pools around the country that were my therapy pools. 2 of the hospitals got sold and someone else took over the clinic, so I didn't get to do my therapy there anymore. One was the Wilt Chamberlain Rehab Center, because I brought Wilt, my good friend, to Miami, in the Golden Glades Medical Center. They started the Wilt Chamberlain Rehab Center, but 2 years later, A.R.E.A. Hospital sold to Tenet Hospitals, and Tenet wanted their rehab facility back, even though Wilt's name was on it. That kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
They just wanted to get rid of that other hospital altogether, and I think they couldn't reach a deal about it. And I've had clinics in we call it the Valley, over the hill, about 15 miles from here, up over the hill in a different world where it's really hot today and it's nice and cool here in Santa Monica. They over the hill. I had a pool there at a YMCA, and then the motion picture. Oh, this was something that was wonderful that came to me too. The Motion Picture and TV Fund came to us because Jodie Foster had been a home client of ours, and I had a PT assistant, a PTA, who lived near where she lived out in the valley, in Woodland Hills, and Jodie Foster's mother needed therapy. So my therapist would go to Jodie Foster's mother, and they didn't have a pool at the Motion Picture and TV Fund home. And Evelyn Foster talked Jodie into giving him $1 million to build the Jodie Foster Aquatic Pavilion.
Wow.
And because we were sort of instrumental in getting that $1 million to come to that place, they invited me to come in and help design the pool and for therapy. And I had a therapy clinic there for 7 years. But then UCLA came along and they bought all the Motion Picture and TV Fund campuses around the town. There were 6 of them, and that was one of them. So I lost my lease on that pool. That was heartbreaking to me after feeling like that was my dream pool that I'd helped create.
And your baby, really, because
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so my dream going forward is to find another place to have another pool. I need one over in the valley because traffic is hard in LA. And when people have to come up over the hill, that's sort of a geographic barrier, like a big bridge you got to get across.
Oh, I've driven that, so I know that bridge.
Yeah. So I'm looking for a place to build a pool over there in the valley. I've been working for the past couple of years, and the reason I've kind of forgotten about it, because it's been on hold during the pandemic, was a project that I was calling Float, to be an app that people could have on their pool for, here's my knee injury, here's the questionnaire I'm going to take, and here's where this tells me what to start with, which program to start with over here. And we'll be recording all of these videos for the rehab of all the different things. And I had an investor on the line. I had all kinds of things set in place, and when the pandemic came up, it all sort of fell apart. So I'm starting over again, trying to build it back together again. Yeah. And it's just, I haven't quite, I've been so busy getting my practice going again and reinvented that that had to come first.
Yeah.
And now I can go back to this. This is my dream for, I guess, my retirement old age, but I don't know if I'll ever do that. I think I'm going to continue working until I can.
Yeah. I think actually it's one of the joys of the jobs that we do is you can keep going. Yeah. I know when I was doing my master's, that one of the tutors there, who was one of the top lady aquatic therapists, physiotherapists in the UK, I believe she was in her 80s then. And then I came out to IceBat in 2018 in Vegas, and she was there again, representing Great Britain. And I thought, you know what, if she can keep going till her 80s, there's the rest of us can as well.
Yes, I'm going to. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love it. When people say to me, don't you want to retire? I go, heck no. I love going over and playing in Bel Air in a beautiful pool. I love looking over the ocean at one of these fabulous pools in Pacific Palisades that looks out over the Pacific Ocean in a beautiful home. And I get to be in this beautiful pool and play, and I'm making money.
Absolutely. No, it is. I mean, to me, it's the best job in the world. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. And it's one of those things that it makes my mind and my heart feel, I'm in the right place, and it's just calm. It's peace. I'm at home. It's my absolute, I don't know. I love it. Love it.
I know exactly what you mean, because if I'm having a stressful day, because I sort of live in 2 different worlds, I have the physical therapy world that I'm sort of supervising, but I also have to jump in when there's a crisis and hire the PTs and train them, because who else is going to train them? There's nobody around who knows my program as well as I do. And then I can't wait to get over the pool. As soon as I can get in the water, everything is fine. I always just say, just get me to the water and everything will be fine.
Absolutely. Honestly, it's just, yeah. I think there's definitely something very unique about all of us that are sort of that dedicated to the pool. So fabulous. Okay, so I think sort of is there anything else you want to chat about and tell us about yourselves? Because I think we've sort of covered a lot of things. I think it's sort of watch this space, because I think that you and I can do some fabulous work together and bring sort of your stuff over to the UK. So I think if you want to be remembered by anything, you know, should you ever retire, and I say the same thing to everybody that we chat
Well, I'll be gone one day or
to,
another.
yeah, should you ever retire, what would you like to be your legacy? What would you like people to remember you for?
Well, of course, my books will last beyond me,
Yes.
as will my online course. But I think what I would want to be remembered for is the fact that I was the one who started it with elite athletes.
Absolutely.
I brought those athletes in the pool, and they're scoffing at the pool. You can't get a workout in the pool. That's for little old ladies in shower caps.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've been breaking that myth the past 40 years. It's still there. People still think it until they get in, they feel it for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. I mean, it's definitely over here in the UK, you know, all the classes are still very much for the grey-haired old ladies and things, you know. So I think it's there's a lot of sort of like the younger ones coming up that are sort of like gradually bringing people into the pool that want to work harder, and the different programs that are now sort of out there. And of course, IAFC, A.E.A, they do a fabulous job at bringing that sort of more fit and the stronger people into the pool. But I think the therapy side, you know, we're still got a little way to go to bring those athletes in. You know,
well, the athletes, when they get hurt, they're usually desperate. They'll do anything. All you have to do is make contact with the correct people,
yeah,
and say, I can give him a great workout and keep him in shape. You can't get in the water. He can't run on land for the next month. I can run him in the deep water, if it means taping up an ankle or taping up a knee or wearing a knee brace or whatever. You can keep them in great shape. And the athletes are kind of a quick sell if you can gain access. The access is the hard thing. I was already in the sports world.
That's it. I had a time when I was sent up to train with one of the football teams in the UK, and I went in and I did my lecture, my presentation to the GPs and all the physical therapists that were working with this football team. And then we went into the pool and they behaved like 5-year-old little boys. And I turned around and I said to them, you can't do this. Your players are worth millions and millions of pounds. You know, you need to take this seriously, because so eventually what I had to do was I challenged them and I said, right, we'll get in the pool. And if I beat you to the other end of the pool, you will listen to me. But if you beat me, then I'll let you play. Of course, I won because I knew how to manipulate the water.
That's right.
They didn't. Right. But I just was absolutely horrified that, you know, that they just were just playing when they got in the pool. And I thought, you really are not taking this seriously. You know,
they aren't the athletes.
These guys need you, and they need you to take it on board. So,
like when I was in Perth, Australia, what was the name of that team? Oh, I should remember it. It was Fremantle Swans, maybe. Yeah, I think it was. And I took about 8 of those football players into the Australian rules football players into the water. They took it seriously, and I gave them a tough workout, and they were all going, whoa, I had no idea you could work this hard in the water. Yeah. You have to show the athlete how hard they can work in the water. And
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, get hold of the athletes and they'll be sold, but get hold of the sort of the medical people, and you've got a bit of a battle unless they actually appreciate it themselves. So,
well, if you had taken one, the most athletic of those one in, instead of them, they would have had to pay attention. But having a group of little boys, you had to deal with that.
That's it. So,
oh, well, we're both battling the same monster out there, trying to make this all work for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you know, keep battling. We'll keep battling.
Yes, so, forever.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very, very much, Lynda, for your time.
Thank you, Lynda.
It's been absolutely lovely talking to you. And I would love to carry our sort of conversation on bringing some of your courses over, and we can get them accredited over here and sort of talking to you a little bit more. So
that sounds lovely to me. So we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.